Awesome. So welcome everyone. It's 6 o'clock, so we are going to start. Welcome to our senior parent night for our class of 2023. I am Ariane Regatta, one of the 7 school counselors at Clayton Valley, and presenting with me today is Ellen Coleman. So just so everyone knows, this presentation will be provided with links and QR codes to scan on your phone on each of the slides. And this presentation is also going to be recorded. So if everyone here tonight will also have access to the exact presentation and slide deck on the Clayton Valley website after tonight. So we are going to be discussing a lot of information. And if you have any questions as we are going through this presentation, feel free to use the chat to ask your questions. At the end of our presentation, we will have a Q&A. Ellen and I will address the questions in the chat first, and then you can use the raise your hand feature on the bottom of the screen. Where it says reactions, there's an emoji of the raise hand button that you can click on. So if we can see who has a question during the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation, you can also raise your hand that way. So on our agenda for tonight, we are going to be talking about graduation requirements, the college admissions process, Naviance, and senior tasks. And so these are our amazing counselors at Clayton Valley Charter High School this year by last name of students alphabet. We have Miss Rush, Mr. Lafiti, Miss Coleman, who is here with us tonight, Miss Regato, myself, Miss Gonzalez, Miss Bonet, and then Mrs. Garcia. So Ms. Garcia and Ms. Gonzalez are our college and career counselors. They support with Naviance Career and College Platform, which we will also be discussing more in depth in this presentation. They also support with trends in college admissions, visits with college reps that we just started this last month. We also have more college reps visits coming up this October. So if your student is interested in attending UC Santa Barbara, University of San Francisco, University of Hawaii, and California Baptist University, that will be coming up this month in October. So if you're interested in attending a college visit, your students can sign up through Naviance. They'll receive a pass the day of the college rep visit that they're registered for. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Ms. Garcia or Ms. Gonzalez. And so our college and career counselors also support your students with scholarship information, financial aid workshops, and SAT, ACT information. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a QR code, and then you can scan the QR code on your phone to access more detailed information. We have an Instagram app, and we also have a Remind app, which you'll be able to open on your camera, again, on your phone, and it'll take you to the links. And again, this will be available on the Clayton Valley website for you to reference later on if you need more information on that. So how do your students reach us at school? So all of our offices are located in student services. Students are welcome to come and drop in either before and after school, during brunch or lunchtime, and also during office hours, which we're now calling ugly hours. And so we're also available via phone and email. So now I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Coleman. She's going to be starting us off with talking about transitions.
Good evening, everyone. So senior year is a big year and often with lots of emotion. So whether your student is planning, to stay home and attend a community college, or they're planning to go off somewhere, just from experience, it can be an interesting year. So just hang in there. Ariane.
Hi, yeah, did you? Oh, next slide, there we go.
Okay, so how can you help your student this year? It's really important that they continue to do well academically. I think senior aides can really grab them sometimes. And as you know, after they apply to college and get admitted and accept somewhere, that final transcript is going to be super important because it needs to have, the kind of grades that they applied with. And admissions decisions can get rescinded. So we don't want that. So they just need to keep going as they have been and have a productive year. Check the website and keep up with what's happening. There's lots of fun senior activities and lots of interesting college presentations. Discuss their college options with them. I think it's really hard for parents and students to talk about finances, but sometimes if they have an idea of like kind of what their college budget is, it really helps. Do they want to go far away? Are you okay with that? The majors that they want to apply. So just support them in that. There's also a senior English project. And the biggest part is really filling out the FAFSA because they can't do that without your 2021 tax information. So that should kind of be a team effort. There's also a second form called the CSS profile. Some private schools require that, and that requires even more financial information that they would not have any idea what they're talking about. So finances and scholarships, you can really help them. Okay, so as you all know, because you've been to a few of these before, these are our grad requirements. Hopefully your students on track, they've all received their transcript. And the counselors have met with students that are off track. So some students have something they need to make up. They're still fulfilling grad requirements. Some students had a grade possibly of a D that they were fixing, and all of that should be happening now during the first semester. All students should have a minimum of 170 credits. They must keep their grades up to be eligible for senior activities. And again, we do have credit recovery. We have Edgenuity classes. Students can take a community college class and they can repeat in seat in certain circumstances, usually if we have room. Okay, so most students are applying to CSUs and UCs. And then some private schools and some out-of-state schools as well. So our California admissions requirement for the 9 UC campus and the 23 CSU campuses are listed here. Again, I'm sure you're familiar, but they need 2 years of social science, 4 years of English, 3 years of math. It has to include algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. We highly recommend that students took math, so hopefully they're still in a math class this year. 2 years of lab science, 3 is recommended, and you have to have a biological and a physical science. 2 years of the same language, 3 is recommended. 1 year of a college prep visual performing art, and then 1 year of a college prep elective. So that could be all kinds of things. It could be an extra year of science. It could be an extra year of math. It could be an extra year of language. It could be psychology, computer science, all kinds of things can fill that spot. And lastly, both the CSUs and UCs are now what we call test free, which means they will not look at students' test scores. So I know a lot of kids haven't tested, and that's going to be okay for the public California schools. So key differences between high school graduation and college entrance. For this year only, this is our last class that can receive a D grade, and that is considered passing. Everyone else, as we move forward, will need a C or higher. They need 3 years of math and 1 year of world language to graduate, and for college entrance, Everything has to be a C. That's why we have a few kids fixing some things. The math has to include geometry and algebra 2 or higher. They have to have 2 years of language. Some students, if they're applying out of state, there's a couple states that are still hanging on to those tests, and there's some private schools that are still hanging on, may need a test score. And since there aren't test scores, many colleges will be looking at grades to demonstrate college readiness, but you don't have to worry about that part yet. That has to do with when they get in and accept. It's not usually an issue. Students that meet these requirements with all C or better gets this beautiful cord. This will probably be our last year of cord, since all of our upcoming classes will be A through G eligible. And we hand those out the week before graduation. Okay, so college admissions. So California has 4 systems of education. I think there's 114 community colleges. Our local ones are DVC, LMC, Contra Costa College. There's Berkeley Community College. There's all kinds of community colleges in our area. Some students that don't feel ready to go straight to a 4-year will sometimes also go off. Santa Barbara City College, Santa Monica City College, Cuesta, those are all, that's by San Luis Obispo. Those are all popular destinations for students if parents are willing to pay for housing. And as we know, community college tuition is a lot less expensive. Then we have the 23 Cal State universities. San Francisco State, Chico, San Diego State are a few examples. And then the 9 University of California campuses, Berkeley, UCLA, Merced, etc. And then we do have some California privates. St. Mary's is local, Chapman down in LA. So there's many private schools in the state too. So what are the CSUs looking for? The CSUs are looking for the A through G requirements. They require a 2.5 GPA or higher, but they will look at students who are in the 2.0 to 2.49 range. And they offer bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. And there's a couple PhDs in there at a couple of the schools. So many of these schools, their average GPA is way over the minimum, 2.5. But there's definitely a place for everyone in this system. So the only change at the CSUs at this point is that the ACT and SATs are not used for admission. And then if a student is under 2.5, they're gonna ask some questions and look at supplemental factors. So they kind of want to know what the student has been doing out of the classroom. It's pretty general still. So like I said, many schools are over that 2.0 or 2.5, and many schools and majors are impacted. So the 2 hardest CSUs are Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and San Diego State. Those 2 can be harder to get into some of the UCs. And then there's always popular majors. So nursing is always impacted. It's a very popular major at the CSU. It just means it's going to be a little bit harder to get in, but again, there's a place for everyone. And other popular majors, I would say business, engineering, psychology, biology. So those are the average. So I did put some GPAs on here, and the reason I did this is because when I talk to your student and I'm looking at their list, I want to make sure their list is balanced. So if the student is a 4.0 engineering student and they're looking at Cal Poly SLO, they're in that range because the average for them is 4.0, but then again, it's also engineering. So whenever you have a high touch major like engineering and nursing, for example, you can expect that GPA to be a little bit higher. Another favorite is San Diego State. They keep creeping up right now. They're about a 3.98 average. That still means kids with lower GPAs and higher GPAs still get in. Long Beach is around a 3.5. East Bay, which is our Hayward campus, is 3.23, and San Francisco State average is a 3.36. So if your student is applying to some of these schools, just make sure that they have a window and are applying broadly. And we call them likely schools, on track, and then reach. University of California, their minimum is a 3.0 to get in. They also want A through G requirements. They are looking at extracurricular activities, and there's a very long part of the app where they can fill in all of the things they've been doing outside of school and inside of school that are, outside of the classroom. They have to write 4 essays called personal insight questions, and they choose from 8. What do they offer? Bachelor's and master's, doctoral degrees, and there are law and medical schools in the system. Okay, so again, the UCs are not accepting the SAT or ACT. Again, they are asking for PIQs and extracurriculars. Yeah. And then if there's anything that they want to tell the university, there is an additional comment section. So let's say their grades were not at their normal levels during COVID, they could explain that. If there's any health issues, they could explain that. Absolutely, it's not required to put anything in there, but if a student feels that they want the university to know something extra, they can use that section. And if they're not sure they want to share, they can always talk to us and we can advise them.
You're eating off the floor? You silly nut.
Oh, I think that we have some people that may not have put themselves on mute. So if
don't jump them.
That's
you.
No.
Can you find them, Ariane?
Let's see.
Want me to put them in a bowl for you?
Hold on one second, everybody. My apologies. Let me just make sure that we can. Okay, there we go.
Thank you. Okay, so when the UCs are looking at your student, they're looking at all of these factors. So, GPA is always king. Included is the courses that they're taking or have taken. They're looking at honors advanced placement, quality of senior year program, the academic opportunities available to them, their performance, achievement in special projects, academic performance, special talents, achievements, awards, participation in any kind of program, and academic accomplishments. And they're also looking at location. So these are just some of the things besides, the class, their GPA, the classes they've taken that they are looking at when admitting students. So when it comes to the UCs, they do take the top 9%. They will give your student a place, but it doesn't mean the place that they may want to be. So last year, for example, I did have one student who was a very strong student, but applying to a very popular major, and she did get waitlisted everywhere. Of course, she had applied to some CSUs and had spots there. She did get off the wait list and it was her top choice. It was a very happy ending. But when she was on the wait list and didn't have a spot in the UC, they did offer her a spot at UC Merced. So with that top 9%, that can happen. I don't see it happen often, like in this case, but it does happen occasionally. Okay, so for the personal insight questions, your students are familiar with these by now because I think all the English teachers have introduced them. They're going to write on 4 of these that are meaningful to them. When you guys can pull that up later when our PowerPoint is on the web, and as you can see, there's the URL on the bottom there. And you know, those are really personal, so students can kind of pick whatever interest. There's not a better essay topic. They're all equally sound, so just have them, you know, do what inspires. So this is because the UCs do not have test scores anymore. I decided to put the admit rate. This is from 2020 on here. Actually, it's from 2021. So Berkeley, their average GPAs, you can see, is a 4.7 to 4.31, and their admit rate for the last class was 11.4%. UCLA admit rate 8.6, San Diego 23%, Davis 37%, and Santa Cruz 47%. So, for example, UCLA is such a popular campus. I think they got 140,000 applications last year, and their class is about a class of like 6,500. So that's where you get that lovely 8.6 admit rate. It's just, they have too many people that want to attend the school. I believe Berkeley last year was around 86,000 applications. So it just makes it a little more competitive, and that's why we want your student to apply broadly. Okay, so if they do end up attending a UC campus, there is a writing requirement, which is usually fulfilled by AP scores or grades, but some students will have to take the analytic writing placement. If they do, you guys will be notified. And for the CSUs, if they feel like a student is not academically ready for some reason in language arts or math, there's also an early start program. Most students don't have to do either of these, but there are support programs that are in place. So out-of-state colleges. So we know we have the UCs and the CSUs, and we have local California private institutions. There's a lot of amazing schools out of state, both public and private. So most will require A through G coursework. Very few require SAT or ACT now. There's some schools in Florida, Georgia. Then there's some highly selective private schools, for example, MIT and Georgetown, that still want scores, but most are optional. So if your student is applying to private schools and they're not sure if they should submit their score, please have them come consult with us. All right, can you go? Okay.
Sorry.
No, yeah. Okay. So many also require letters of recommendation. And why apply out of state? Some have higher admit rates. It's not as impacted, so kids can get their classes easier sometime. All schools all over the country want to have a diverse group of students. So if I'm a school in Texas, I definitely want people from California to come. So you can get scholarships at some of these schools. And then we do have an exchange or agreement called WUI. So that's for neighboring states like Arizona, Washington, Oregon, Hawaii. Not all schools participate, but if you're interested, you can look on that link for the Western Undergraduate Exchange. Type in a school, for example, University Nevada, Reno, and you can see what they offer. Arizona State has some WUI. It really depends. Colorado is one of the states as well. So you can find some kind of bargains. They'll give you a deal on their tuition. Here are some very popular averages for our students. Arizona State, average GPA for an admin is 3.5. University of Arizona is 3.4. They were very generous last year, so I don't know exactly what's going on with them, but that's a great school. UNR was a 3.4, University of Oregon 3.59, and University of Utah a 3.66. Okay, so for private and independent colleges, those are any private schools: St. Mary's, Claremont McKenna, University of Puget Sound, which is in Washington. They're all over. And depending on the school, they'll have different degrees they're offering. All will obviously offer a bachelor's degrees. There'll be masters and some doctorates. Again, you're going to have to look at these schools to see if they want an SAT or ACT, but again, most are optional. And again, most will require a letter and a essay. So here are some. St. Mary's is a private school that's local. Their average is 3.6. Santa Clara, 3.7. USC is reporting 3.8, but I actually think that's a little low for them. And University of San Francisco is a 3.54. Those are some local California privates. So if you are applying to private schools or out-of-state schools, hopefully they're going to be on the common application. So I'm going to kind of pause here to talk about this. So if I'm applying to the University of California 9 campuses, there's a portal, and I can use that portal to apply to all 9 of those schools, or just the ones I want of the 9. And then we have the CSU. They have their own portal as well. Students can apply to any CSUs on there. And then private and out of state, most of them are using the common application. There's over 1,000 colleges that use it. So there's one main essay for them. And of course, each college will have a little bit different questions, but again, it just keeps students from having to fill out an insane amount of applications. If you want to know if your school, there's a quicker way to find out if they're taking SAT or ACT if you don't want to go to the actual website, and that's called fairtest.org, which is just a database of test optional colleges. This existed before the pandemic. Many schools were going test optional before the pandemic, but the pandemic kind of made this explode. So that's where we are. Okay, so most students are going to be applying regular decisions. So if I'm looking at UCs and CSUs, the application opens for the CSU on October 1st, and it has to be submitted by November 30th. Please don't submit the last day. I usually tell kids before Thanksgiving. The UCs have been open for a while, so the kids can be filling out their application, but they will not take any submission till October 1st, and they have till November 30th. There's no rush, so getting it in early is not going to help anyone exactly, but again, just try to have them in before Thanksgiving. But other schools, private schools, and some out-of-state schools may have other application options. So there's always regular decision. So if I'm applying to St. Mary's or Santa Clara, University of Puget Sound, University of Washington, Harvard, I can always do regular decision. But some schools also have what we call early decision and early action. So basically, early action is non-binding. A lot of those deadlines are November. I mean, November 1st is the deadline. So basically, you submit everything early and you get your answer early, which can be really nice and always a huge relief for students to know they have somewhere they can go. So I say if a school that your student is interested in has early action and their application feels ready, then that's always a great option. Early decision is a completely different animal because you are committing to that school. It is binding. So if I apply, for example, to Vanderbilt, early decision, that means if I get in, I'm going to that school. And I think one of the downfalls is you can't compare financial aid offers, which you can with early action. But it is an option. There's always a few kids every year that do it. I've also seen kids that don't get in their early decision school, and then they have another round called early decision 2, so they could pick another institution and apply to that institution early decision. The good news is there is a document that the counselor and parent have to sign to make sure that we know and the student really understands what they're committing to, because they are still only 18 years old. There is this little early decision self-evaluation questionnaire that I added a link to if you want to look at that if you're considering an early decision school. And then lastly, to make things even more complicated, there are a few early action schools that are restrictive early action. And again, those are the high flyers. Most students are not applying to those schools. My children did not apply to those schools, but that would be like, for example, Stanford. So they're saying, hey, you can apply early with us. It's not binding. We won't hold you to it, but you cannot apply early to any other school, early action or early decision. So sometimes those come up, and again, please have your student discuss that with their counselor. Okay. So that was a big breath. So college-bound student athletes, if your student is planning on applying to schools and wants to play sports, they must sign up on the NCAA website. I have met with several athletes that are in my caseload this year, so we just have to make sure that they have all of their coursework, and that's super important. And if you're on that path, you've been probably keeping your eye on this for a very long time. So there's the graduation requirements for an athlete, there's college requirements for the athlete, and then there's the NCAA requirements. So it can get very complicated. NCAA also has suspended SAT scores this year, which is fabulous. And we still don't know what's going to happen for the 24-25 school year. All right, if you are testing, or if your student is still testing or considering throwing in a test, there's still November and December coming up. SAT no longer offers an essay, so it's just straight, and the ACT is another option. They have an October and December test. If your student is on free or reduced lunch, they can get a fee waiver. I'm having a real problem speaking. So just have them come check in with the college counselors or one of us. All right, I think I'm going to just stop for a second, answer these two questions that came up on the Q&A before I start on community colleges. So when I was talking about the percentage of students that were getting into specific schools like UC Berkeley, 11.4 is just 11.4 of all applicants. So for every 100 students that applied, 11 would get an offer of admission. For UCLA, remember it was 8%. So that basically means for every 8 students, for every 100 students, 8 would receive an offer. And then the early invitation to apply to UC, that's called ELC. That is not similar to early action, because even though they're asking you to apply, they still need you to submit your application and pay the application fees. But they're giving you consideration based on your student's GPA. So that was that whole thing, the 9% of the state and the 9% of the school, of the actual high school is guaranteed a spot if they apply to a UC. But again, it can be at the UC that they applied to if they get a spot, or it could be to an alternate UC. Like I was talking about that student that got an offer from UC Merced when she was waitlisted at all her schools. I hope that helps. Okay, so now that we've done the big one, we know we have the CSU app, we have the UC app, we have the Common App. I could be applying to private schools, public schools out of state on there, but it's one place I can put all my information in. And within that range of schools I'm applying to, I really want to make sure that I have likely schools where my GPA is over their average, on track, where I'm kind of on track with the average. And then I can still go for that reach school and try to get in. And it does happen sometimes, but it's less likely to happen. So when we're talking about likely schools, another likely and always a backup is a California community college. So some students are only applying to CSUs. Their life's going to be pretty simple. They say, hey, I only like these 4 CSUs. I'm not doing any UCs or privates. And if I don't get in, I'm happy to go to DVC. So for me as a counselor, the most important thing is on their list, they have a place they can get in that they'll be happy. So those likely schools, we want them to be excited about those schools because they're likely to get in, and not just be excited about those reach schools. And the other super important thing is that you have a financial safety school. Basically one that you can afford. And I want to give you a big tip here. Any school that your student is applying to, on the financial aid page, there's a net price calculator. And as parents, we're handling the finances. We could go in there and put in some information and get kind of a guesstimate or estimate of what the cost of that college might be for our student. But we know the California community colleges are very affordable, and they offer great programs, certificate programs. You can get an AA or AS degree. You can get vocational training, and you can also transfer to a CSU or a UC or any other college from a California community college. This year, many of the community colleges, but definitely DVC, our partner, has this 4 CD first time, full-time free tuition. So basically, if your student goes there, takes a minimum of 12 units, keeps a 2.0 or above GPA, they're California resident, and they must complete the FAFSA or DREAM Act, depending on which one applies to them, they can get 2 years of tuition for free. So normally tuition at DVC, I think, has gone up to like $49 a unit. Most students take 15 units a semester. So that would be saving them a bit of money, and you can save that money for when they're ready to transfer to a 4-year if that's their path. So right now, the kids are working on their 4-year college. Any community college, they don't have to apply until the spring. We do have College Bound Day coming October 12th. We have all kinds of activities for seniors, and DVC is actually coming to do a presentation as well, so they can meet with them at that time. But you can look at either of these 2 websites and explore majors. So specifically, if you're looking for some kind of certificate, like I had a kid come into my office the other day that wants to be an X-ray tech. And yes, you can get X-ray tech education through Kaiser, through other medical institutions, but they're also offered at community college for a very good deal. So, you know, you can search for those kind of far-reaching ones, because not every college is going to have X-ray tech, because the machinery required is very expensive. So there'll usually be a couple in each state. All right. So here we go again. Please have a mix of reach, target, and likely. Again, if a community college is the safety or likely school on your students list, that's totally fine. Do your research. Hopefully your student was researching this summer. I always find that the list keeps changing kind of up till the last minute, and that's totally normal and fine. Something might just pop up out of the blue and they get really excited about that. Most students apply between 5 and 8 4-year universities. But some people go a little crazy, and I think during the pandemic, people went really crazy. So my younger daughter back in the day applied to 14, and she was very strong-willed, so I didn't feel like arguing with her, but it was really way too much for her to manage. So, you know, somewhere between the 5 and 8 is a little bit more realistic. But okay, what is important to students? Location. Do they want to be in a city? How far from home are they? Do they have the major or program the student's interested in? That's a big deal. You know, not every school has aeronautical engineering. That's just one example. Lots of kids interested in computer science, but do they want computer science straight or computer science and engineering program? So these are all factors to look at. Again, cost and affordability, use net price calculators, and kind of have an idea of cost. And don't be fooled just by the sticker price, because some private schools, if you have a student and and that student is applying to a private school and they're over the school's average GPA, they may offer them a merit scholarship. And that's what a merit scholarship really is about. They're trying to entice your student to come. You're not likely to get a merit scholarship at a school where you're right on track with the GPA or under their average GPA. But, you know, if you're looking for a bargain, you might want to look at schools where your student is over that GPA and it's a solid academic and personal match for your student. And then you just kind of put it out there and see what happens. If you can have your student visit campuses, And then a lot of parents are very interested in like the Career Center. Are there internship programs available when the student gets there? So that's always something to take a look at. With our climate now, how strong are their mental health services? A lot of students are experiencing anxiety. If your student has a special learning difference, I would look at their disability services and see what kind of supports they have. And then study abroad pretty much happens everywhere, but if that's something your student wants to do, you might want to look at that as well. Okay, so again, we have Cal State applies the 23 CSUs, University of California for the 9 campuses, the Common App. A lot of schools are on there. And then we do have the coalition is redoing its platform this year. I don't think there's any coalition schools that aren't already on the Common App, so I would probably pick the Common App if I could choose this year. And there is also a Common Black college application that your student can sign up for $20. I think there's like 40 schools they can apply to on that platform for just the $20 fee. So that's a good deal as well. Test scores usually can be self-reported on the application, but at some point they have to be sent directly. And again, have your student check with their counselor to see if they should be submitting scores if they're optional. Transcripts will be submitted by us for any private or out-of-state school as long as your student requests them on Naviance. And the UCs and CSUs do not want transcripts until the bitter end, which means when your student has said, yes, I'm coming, and submitted their deposit, we will send one at the very end. Occasionally, some of those schools will request a transcript. So I think it's super important. And we're telling the kids that to please have them check their emails to see if they're getting any kind of special requests from the UCs or CSUs, because usually they do not want anything, but sometimes they do. There's no essays for the CSUs. And like I said, for the UCs, there's personal insight questions. And then the common application has one large 650-word essay that they will fill out on the Common App. Again, letters of rec not required for CSU or UC. Mostly they are required by private colleges and some out of states. Don't ask for letters unless you're really sure you need them. You must give your teacher and counselor at least 2 weeks notice. And you can request them through Naviance. I always tell kids, ask your teacher in person first and then request them on Naviance. They don't have to ask us because we know we're supposed to write for them or fill out their form. But we need information. So they also have to fill out their brad sheet. No SAT or ACT scores are posted on our CVCHS transcripts. Okay, so we have lots of opportunities for students to get help. In October, we're going to be in the library at lunchtime. I think it's every Tuesday at lunch. And Thursdays after school, we have this wonderful office hour. So I've had a ton of kids coming in and asking me questions about applications in college, and they can log on so I can see what they're talking about on their Common App or UC. So that's been really helpful as well. Ariane, you want to take it from here?
Sure. So I will just briefly go over a couple of other alternative options for vocational and trade schools. There's a lot of really good information on this website. And then these are also the military options as well. So there's the Army, the Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. And then I'm going to switch gears now and talk about financial aid. So with the FAFSA, which stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, there is a baseline application for all student aid, and how that's determined, it's by eligibility for grants, work study, parent and student loans. The FAFSA is also required for Cal Grant application processing purposes. And it's really important that you make sure that the address on your FAFSA also matches the PS address. So the criteria for the FAFSA is that you must be a US citizen or legal permanent resident or have been granted asylum. So you also need to have a social security number. And for the California DREAM Act, the criteria is for students who do not have a social security number or have one from a completed DACA or visa. And so the student must have attended a California school for at least 3 years and will graduate from a California high school or their GED, and will also be attending a California college. So this is also required for the Cal Grant application processing. Applications start on October 1st this year. So use prior tax information, as Ellen mentioned earlier, and it's the taxes from 2 years ago, which was 2021. And the deadline to complete this is March 2nd. And CVCHS will be hosting free cash for college workshops. We're going to have financial aid experts that will come to campus to assist with the financial aid, FAFSA, and California DREAM Act application. You and your student can sign up for one of the workshops below using the QR code or the Google form link. And so the 4 types of financial aid, the first type are grants. So grants are free money for education expenses, and that's based on financial need. And the main types are Cal Grants and Pell Grants. The second type of financial aid is work study. So work study is just jobs to help pay for school, and typically it's employment at the college or university campus, and students can work up to 15 hours per week. The third type are scholarships, and scholarships are free money based on specific requirements or criteria. And there are 3 main types of scholarships on campus. There's national, and then there's also local scholarships. And the 4th type of financial aid are loans. Loans are money that must be paid back with interest. There are subsidized loans, which the government pays down with interest while students are in school. And then there's also unsubsidized loans, which are automatic monthly payments. And there's also there's additional detailed information about financial aid, again, on both of these links on the bottom. So how does financial aid work? Financial aid work, it's college basically determines and offers students financial aid based on the following equation. So it's cost of attendance, abbreviated as COA, and expected family contribution, which is EFC. So financial aid is also determined by financial need, and EFC is generated from the FAFSA. So these are the important dates. So to check the status of your Cal Grant, you'll need to go to the websites listed on the slide. So on the website, you'll be able to set up your web grant account, and then you can just make note that GPAs are uploaded by CVCHS to the CSAC prior to October 1st deadline. And then you'll check the Cal Grant status award, confirm students' high school graduations are required, make changes to Cal Grant school choices, view how much a Cal Grant is worth at different California colleges and universities. And then you can also view the Cal Grant payment history.
Okay. I'm just gonna answer these 2 financial aid questions that were up here. So for the community colleges, you don't have to have any kind of income level, but you have to file the FAFSA to get your free tuition. And I think it's always a good idea to file a FAFSA the first year, whether or not you think that you're going to qualify for your student. And then the thing about the FAFSA is every year you have to fill it out again. So that's a yearly thing, and you're always using prior tax returns. So remember, your student won't be going to college and you're going to until 23-24. So you're filling out the 23-24 FAFSA form, which becomes available October 1st. So the 21 is prior for their college enrollment year. I hope that's better. Okay, Ariane.
Awesome. So now the last part we're about to wrap up, we're just going to talk about Naviance in the senior tasks and timeline. And so counselors submit transcripts and other necessary documents, for example, letters of rec, school reports, and things like that through Naviance. And so this is their task list for Naviance. So it's the college search, colleges I'm applying to, and then there's other features. Like I mentioned before, there's the college rep visits to sign up for. There's the scholarship database, and then that's where the brag sheet is. And then this is again the link for Naviance on the right-hand side. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about Yearbook Info. So here's the link. So this information is also on the Clayton Valley website. So yearbooks are going to be $115 this year, and then $125 after January 16th. We also have senior ads. So senior ads are currently on sale, and then you can click on the link below to purchase and design your senior ad if you're interested in that. And just be aware that prices do increase after November 1st, and the very final date of purchase of senior ad is January 15th. And we can't guarantee there will be spots left by that date. And so there's the link there for that. And then we also have senior pano. The senior panoramic is tentatively scheduled for February, and more information will be sent out after winter break for that. And then we also have senior portraits. So senior students must work with Studio One photography to capture their senior portraits. Portraits are used in the yearbook and the class banner, and you can purchase images for personal use and for graduation announcements, exciting stuff. And then the last thing is baby and then and now portraits. So we're accepting senior baby photos for the yearbook as well. And so we also need senior photos for the then and now section in the yearbook. So those are the pictures for the section, and they can be from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. So just please use a current photo as well. And then you can click on all of the links for that to upload your photos. And images will be used on a first come, first served basis. So get your photos in, so they'll be in the yearbook. And the very final deadline to be considered is December 1st. And then the last thing is senior quotes. So we're accepting senior quotes to go under the senior portraits. The last day to submit is also December 1st. So submit senior quotes using the Google form below, and make sure your students are logged into their Google account in order to do that. And then again, there's the link on the bottom. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And did we get to all the questions in the chat? Let's see. I think we did. Does anyone else have any other questions?
If you have a question, you can raise your hand. I thought of something with these financial aid questions, just I want to mention. I would, the FAFSA, the 23-24 FAFSA opens October 1. Since you're using prior year which will be 2021. I would try to get that filled out. I would not wait till the end of March, and especially if your student is doing any early action applications, because they usually want that information earlier. So it's not fun filling out financial information for most of us. There might be a few accountants out there, but if you can get it done the sooner the better. I would have a goal of before Thanksgiving as well.
And then we had another question in the chat. Someone asked about the Common App. Is it one Common App per state, or are there multi-state Common Apps?
No, the Common Application is just what it says. It's a common application. So on there, colleges can sign up, like St. Mary's is on there, Stanford is on there. University of Washington is just joined this year, and we're all super excited because they always did their own thing, right? Colleges in Boston, colleges in the South are on there. So not every single college that's private or out of state, but many are. So all 50 states can be represented. So if your student is applying to more than one college that's on the Common App, I would use that feature, because then they don't have to fill out all of that information like over and over again. It was really created to make students' lives easier.
And then we had another question in the chat. Someone asked, if I filled out FAFSA recently and submitted in September, do I need to do it again in October?
I would think so, because I think you might have filled out the FAFSA for the 22-23 school year, and you need to fill it out for the 23-24 school year for your student.
And then this next question, where will the slideshow be on the website? Yeah, they should be after tonight posted on the counseling tab.
Yeah, so if you go to our website and you go to offices and then counseling, we have they'll be posted on there. I'll have them post them tomorrow.
Okay, so those are all the questions in the chat. Does anyone else have any other questions? And on the bottom too, you can click on reactions, and then there's a raise hand emoji feature. So if you click on that, we can see your hand pop up too. Or you could just unmute and ask. Oh, I see Mari Gomez. Go ahead. Mari, you're on mute. You're on mute, so we can't hear you. Go ahead and click unmute, and then yeah.
Is that toward me?
Hi, yes.
How are you? Now,
Good,
I
how
have
are
a quick
you?
question. Are the kids starting to meet with the counselors? Are you meeting with are the kids meeting with the counselors? Like the presentation you just gave us, have the kids seen it? Are they meeting with the counselors so that they understand? Because, I mean, when I just heard those dates that applications are starting and they're due soon, that's like, whoa, that's around the corner.
Yeah, the students have all seen a presentation. And then again, we also have the college day coming October 12th, which will just reinforce it. There's actually one of the sessions on there that's called Applications 101 that will go over everything, even more detail for them. And then again, I've met with all my seniors. I'm not sure. I think a lot of the counselors have seen a lot of their seniors, but a lot of them are coming in as well.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Glad to hear.
They should have seen the senior presentation during our ugly or office hours a few weeks ago.
Thank you.
Christina, did you have a question? Go ahead. Or Christian?
Hi, sorry.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
My
Go
son,
ahead.
I just have a question. My son has a 4.3 GPA, but he didn't do any extracurricular activities or sport. So instead he wants to just do DVC. Is that something that you recommend, or he should try to apply even if he didn't do the extracurricular?
I think he should apply, and I would love to talk to him, because I think a lot of students, there's a lot of ways to do extracurriculars. It's like some students have family obligations, and that's an extracurricular.
Okay.
Some students have jobs. That's an extracurricular. So I think in their minds, they're not really exploring all the possibilities. And then we had the pandemic and people did a lot of really creative things because they weren't doing traditional things. So I think brainstorming with your son would help him to see the things that he has done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then some other questions in the chat. When do you get the results from the financial aid? Does it often coincide with application responses from colleges?
So when you're applying for financial aid through the FAFSA, in that process, you're listing the schools that your student is applying to. So let's say they're applying to only 3 schools: University of California, San Diego, San Francisco State, and DVC. You would list those schools in there, and those schools will receive the information from the FAFSA. And then when your student is accepted into those schools, if your student is accepted, you will get an acceptance and then a financial aid offer. Okay, so you can fill out the FAFSA and then a month later, you can go back in and take schools out and add other ones. It's all fine. But if you don't designate the school in the FAFSA, the school will not get your information and then cannot make your student an offer. And that offer often involves many things. It could involve free money like grant money or scholarships. It could involve loans. It could involve a work study. So it's really important if the student doesn't understand exactly what the financial aid offer says, because they're not all the same, which can be super confusing. Have a counselor look over that with them as well. Would probably be a good idea.
Okay, and then we just have one more question in the chat. If I have a W-2 and K-1, which one do I use for FAFSA?
You're probably the W-2, but I'm not sure. I haven't filled out a FAFSA myself for many, many, many years. But just have that information available, and they're only asking certain questions. So they want your, adjusted gross income, and it will direct you whatever line that is on the form.
And then another question, as a parent, do I set up a Naviance account or does my student? And then as with FAFSA, parent or student?
So the FAFSA actually belongs to the student, but you're both filling out the form and it's really more your information. And you both have to have what we call a PIN, because you're not signing and filling it out in paper anymore. So it's an electronic number. So that's why you guys should do it together. They are going to ask about student income, which is usually not very much if your student has a job, and then your income and some of your assets. The other thing that you need to be aware of is the FAFSA is going to be completely changing for the 24-25 school year. I think it's going from like 130 questions down to 35. And I think the biggest thing that's going to change is right now it accounts for multiple students in college at the same time, and they're going to kind of take that away. But if your student's already getting financial aid and that's part of your deal, now it's probably going to be college by college to see if they honor that. But it would be good to be aware that there will be FAFSA changes. And if you're concerned about those things, I would definitely call the admissions office where your student plans to attend.
Okay, those are all the questions in the chat. So does
And then, in terms of Naviance, I don't think we do have a parent account. So you would just use your student account. And Ms. Rush had a beautiful baby. And we just got Bill Snyder, who was our old counselor, back covering for her, and she just started on Monday. So we're super excited. Any other questions? So I think the kids, it's very confusing. It's hard to start. So the kids that have started, I think some of that anxiety is kind of gone away. And it's really hard for them to write about themselves for the first time in this kind of way, because they have to, you know, make themselves shine. So it's all new, but it's definitely a growing experience. And we're here to help them manage it all. So just have them come in. Please reach out to us as well. You can shoot us an email, call, and we are happy to talk to parents as well. But if we have no other questions, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Okay, last question here. So should the DVC application be completed now?
No, the DVC application doesn't have to be filled out until the spring semester. So during the fall, we're concentrating on four-year college apps, and in the spring we'll be concentrating on the two-year college apps.
Awesome. Okay, so I think that's it for all the questions. Thank you everyone for attending our parent night. Again, all of the information will be posted on the website. So there will be all of the information of the slide deck. So all of the links and QR codes and resources and things like that will be accessible to you after tonight.
And if you're interested in contacting your student's counselor, we're all listed on the counseling webpage. So you can find our information right there. Okay?
Awesome. All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.